Excuse me, are you Adam Graham?
The very same, and this is my old-time radio snack wagon.
Welcome to the Old-Time Radio Snack Wagon, where we serve up a bite-sized portion of old-time radio. And now, here's your Snack Wagon host, Adam Graham.
Have you ever wondered what podcast from the stars of the 1940s and 50s would have been like? In the 21st century, many celebrities dabble every now and again around busy schedules with their own podcast. Actors, comedians, football players, even U.S. senators are among the massive number of people who have tried their hand at podcasting. While there was no such thing as podcasts back then, there were radio programs. While there are many relatively well-known programs we think of when it comes to the golden age of radio, it actually took a lot of programs to fill a broadcast day. And quite a few of these featured celebrities. Most were focused on a specific theme. Some told news stories and provided their own commentary and perspective. Others told stories. Among those celebrities who had their own short programs were the likes of Kate Smith, Ben Alexander, Claude Rains, and Basil Rathbone. And then there's today's program, Pat O'Brien from Inside Hollywood. And I came across the press notice for this series, and I couldn't help but think, this sounds like a podcast. Now, Pat O'Brien had some very successful films, such as his titular role in Knute Rockne All-American. Another prominent film, The Fighting 69th, and then there was The Front Page. According to the press notice with Pat O'Brien from Inside Hollywood, you never knew quite what you'd hear. You might hear Mr. O'Brien interviewing a script girl or a cook who made food for the stars, telling a story, or enacting a skit with a fellow actor, or waxing philosophical about whatever question listeners might have written in about. The only things that he took strictly off limit were shallow gossip, malicious scandal, or press agent handouts. And even though he promised a true picture of Hollywood, and the title would seem to indicate that that would be the focus, his stories would not always be about Hollywood or the entertainment industry. It would be about whatever he wanted to talk about. In essence, it was a late 1940s proto-podcast with that topic that only celebrities can really fully get away with. Anything and everything. And today we've got a bit of anything with the 142nd episode of Pat O'Brien's Inside Hollywood, The Ghost Rider.
Hi, everybody. According to surveys and the kind of ratings they use to determine the popularity of radio shows among the millions of folks that constitute the listening audience from Cucamonga to Cedar Rapids, one of the most popular kind of programs is the mystery series and ghost stories. Probably a lot of you listening right now will never miss Sam Spade, Sherlock Holmes, or that program with the squeakiest door in radio, Inner Sanctum. Well, I've got a ghost story I'd like to pass on to you. And it's a story about a ghost rider. He's riding again on a tireless steed that never seems to stop pawing the air, riding through time and space. Across cloud-filled skies and through damp-filled nights, across rivers and humpbacks of mountain ridges, across swamps and deserts, riding with the shadowy figure of a man. A dead man clamped down in the saddle, gently holding the reins and prodding the sweating flanks of the horse only at intervals, because the echoing hoofbeats of the Ghost Rider should never end. They should throb in the pulses of every American and live in his memory from family to family, generation to generation. Perhaps ghosts should be seen and not heard, but this is one your whole family should hear about. Well, I'll be back with the story of the Ghost Rider as soon as we've heard from our announcer. Well, the plan called for the utmost secrecy and a group of hand-picked officers who were to be given their verbal orders Tuesday afternoon. The winter had been unusually warm, and spring had come early. The sun was already warm, and on Tuesday, the air was hot and tense. Tuesday afternoon, suspense stalked through the heat. You could feel the undercurrent that comes from disguised actions and unexplained troop movements. The cloak of the secrecy left a trail of tension in its wake. Tension that gripped the group of hand-picked officers as they listened to their general. Gentlemen, it will be your mission to block all roads. I cannot impress upon you the extreme importance of maintaining secrecy. If you're questioned, you will say merely that you are riding out into the country for dinner. You will keep your weapons concealed. Now, this is a map of the area under attack. Major Mitchell, you will station your group here. Colonel Smith, the swamps. Upon reaching your destinations, you will barricade the roads. No one must pass. Is that clear? All right, gentlemen. Proceed with your orders. The group of officers swarmed towards the door. There was barely time to see that their horses were properly saddled and in the best condition for the mission ahead. The underlying idea of the mission had not been discussed. It was supposedly known only to the general and his close assistants, but by dusk the preparations began to take shape. Troops were marched to the landings along the beach. They stood in huddled groups waiting to embark. While further out on the water, a gunboat stood by alert and waiting. People stood silently in the streets, watching. Some not only watched, they made plans. Newman? Yes? Can you talk here? No, officers inside. They boarded my mother's house. Wait. You know what you must do. Yes, I know. What about the ship out there tonight? They say it has 64 cannon aboard. They might see my signals. Not if you hurry. You understand what you must do. You understand, Newman? Yes. Wait. Oh, they're gathering more men in the North Square. Paul, that's where you live. You'll get by them? Yes, I will get by them. Tonight. Later that night, Paul crouched inside his house, waiting for the right moment to make a run for it. For hours, the troops had poured into the square from their barracks and billets. Past his house, beyond the door, and now the last group seemed to have passed. Paul stepped into the street. And then they came. He darted back into the doorway, standing tensely in the shadows. This was the time. Now. The black hull of the gunboat loomed up in the darkness to the left. Paul looked silently at Bentley and Richardson. Danger drifted in the water and hung in the moonlit air. Their own white faces seemed unreal blobs of color in the dark. But the fears, the crawling, nervous fear inside them was alive and real. Now we pause for a few words from our announcer. Oh, Paul. Well, come in. Mr. Devons, Colonel Conant, my respects, gentlemen. You saw my signal. Yes? Oh, then Newman made it to the church. You've alerted the people? Well, we tried, but Mr. Devens, Colonel Collins, let me carry the message. Oh, but Paul... I know. I've been a silversmith, a powder man, and engraver, but I also have a reputation as an official express. Oh, I've ridden thousands of miles before. Oh, but Paul, I say, let me try to get through, Colonel Collins. Wouldn't you grant me the honor? Well, Paul, perhaps Mr. Larkin here has a good horse for you. Oh, thank you, sir. Paul's life and his success for the remainder of the night depended on the animal before him. He adjusted the stirrups to his own length, tested the snugness of the saddle cinches. His hand moved caressingly over the horse's flanks and across the strong ridges of his neck, patting the satin skin reassuringly. Easy, boy, easy. We've got a big night ahead of us, the biggest either of us will ever have. You and me. Steady, boy, steady. Paul swung up into the saddle and tapped the animal's sides with his spurs, heading him down the road that lay in the patchwork of moonlight and shadows. Galloping into the pages of history, art, folklore, and poetry, toward places called Cambridge, Medford, Lexington, and Concord Town. A hurry of hoofs in the village street. A shape in the moonlight, a bulk in the dark, and beneath in the pebbles, and passing a spark struck out by a steed flying fearless and fleet. That was all. And yet, through the gloom and the light, the fate of a nation was riding that night. And the spark struck out by that steed in his flight kindled the land into flame with its heat. They thundered toward Cambridge, the man on the horse. The copper of the road glimmered in the moonlight. And then, just as they approached Charleston Common, two officers mounted, waiting near a narrow bend in the road. Paul wheeled his horse about. He'd have to head for Mystic Road, and outdistance his pursuers. And beneath him, tranquil, broad, and deep in the mystic, meeting the ocean tides and under the alders that skirt its edge, now soft on the sand, now loud on the ledge, is heard the tramp of his steed as he rides. Medford town, asleep in the damp of the river fog, unaware of the warning cry that's about to send them scrambling out of their beds, reaching for their muskets and powder. The regulars are out! The regulars are out! And then Lexington. And the meeting house windows, blank and bare, gaze at him with spectral glare. The regulars are out! So through the night went his cry of alarm to every Middlesex village and farm. A cry of defiance, not of fear, a voice in the darkness, a knock at the door, and a word that shall echo forevermore. Ghost rider on a tireless steed through time and space, across the cloud-filled skies and damp-filled nights, across America, a sentinel of our democracy, riding against intolerance, against the pressures of our freedom, freedom of speech, freedom of worship. We're born on the night wind of the past through all our history, to the last, to the hour of darkness and peril and need. The people will waken and listen to hear the hurrying hoofbeats of that steed. And the midnight message is Paul Rivers. This is Pat O'Brien saying goodbye, and God bless you.
Welcome back. For most listeners, both then and now, the identity of the Ghost Rider was not a big twist. However, it was a good reading with a nice bit of sound effects to bring it to life. While there are many details of this famous night that many historians have sought to clarify, it is still a night to remember nearly 250 years later. And O'Brien's comments briefly indicate the importance of understanding how what we enjoy today are the fruits of the bravery of those who came before, and of passing on that story from one generation to another, which he did, and I guess we're doing as well today. This was an interesting episode, and we may return to this series, and given the scope of Mr. O'Brien's program, who knows what we'll hear next time we do. It's time for me to close up the old snack wagon, but don't worry, we'll be back with another serving of old-time radio goodness before you know it. If you want to enjoy some of our longer form podcasts, you can feast away at my website at greatdetectives.net. Your emails are also welcome at adam@snackwagon.net.
The Old Time Radio Snack Wagon comes to you from Boise, Idaho. Your host is Adam Graham. Sound production is by Rhines Media, LLC. You can listen to past episodes of the Old Time Radio Snack Wagon as well as connect on social media at our website at snackwagon.net. Email suggestions for episodes to adam@snackwagon.net. This has been the Old Time Radio Snack Wagon.
Until next time, goodbye.